Welcome back. This is part 8 of the series. I followed a Laravel tutorial but used my own framework instead. We're going to go over registration and authentication. Just an FYI, we already have this set up, but for completeness, we're going to watch and react to what they're doing.
We're finally going to make use of the sign in and sign up button first in this lesson, the sign in. So we've been pretending that we can edit or delete any chirp that is added. And right now, anytime we add a new one, it's just an anonymous person creating this chirp. Laravel offers complete authentication scaffolding with Laravel's starter kits, but it's also helpful to know how to manually build it first, understand how things work under the hood. So let's start off by creating a new page. So we have our chirps directory where we have our edit page. So it makes sense to do a new directory that is an auth page. So why don't we do auth, and then we'll have a register.blade.php. Let me paste in this code for us. Now, the majority of things that we're seeing here are not new. We've seen them throughout our time together. We have a slot where we're saying this is the register page. We're using a layout. We're using a bunch of different forms. We're gathering any errors that we might have. We're showing those error messages. And then we're using old inputs if we have any errors. So again, not much new, but let's see what this looks like. Let's go ahead and attach it to our web routes. Just to keep things simple for now, let's go ahead and say route view, and this is the /register page, but this is our auth.register view. Now let's go ahead and make sure in our layout we are actually directing to the /register page, and we are not. So let's do that. /register. Oops. /register in the sign up. So sign up /register. This is creating a new account. Great. Everything looks good. So we have a name, we have an email, and a password, and a confirmation of a password.
Alright, so my equivalent is this file here. So for guests, for the auth controller, I'll allow login, register, and reset password. And denied, we do not allow login, register, or reset password. So reset password is happens when someone tries to log in and there's a reset password flag set, so it takes them to this view so they can reset their password. That flag is set administratively through the admin dashboard. For logged in, anybody who is authenticated should be able to log out.
Just while I'm here, why don't I make this the /login route? Now we do need to register a user when they complete this form. We could create a new, maybe authentication controller, but what we're going to do is kind of split this up into different controllers. We're going to use PHP artisan make controller. And here's where we're going to go against the grain just a little bit. Instead of saying that this is a auth controller or a register controller even, I'm going to say that this is the auth/register controller. And this should be a invocable controller. What this looks like is a single controller created in the auth space. So /http auth and then register controller. And what this looks like is a single class. And
Alright, so let's see, we need to, maybe that's an interesting thing, invocable controllers.
invocable controller, which just means that usually you only have one method per controller instead of having a resource controller that has multiple, in this case 7 different methods. So really something like this versus something like this is personal preference, but I did want to show two different ways that you might do it. So that way, everything that we're doing within auth, we're going to have invocable controllers instead of one massive authentication controller that has weirder method names, because we don't necessarily have an update method when it comes to authentication. We don't necessarily have a show method or an edit method. So this is just a different way of doing this. But we just pretend that this invoke.
Yeah, because if I go back to here, I do have some weird things going on. So if I open up the framework, so I have some built-in models here. So I have a login model, a user session model. So this tracks the user sessions. This is mapped to the user session table, but the I had it. Oh, there it is. Login model is kind of a weird animal because it's only responsible for doing the whole remember me check type thing, and then it does the validation. It just ensures that the password and username is entered.
Invoke is whatever method we normally would use in our chirp controller, for example, but this is just our register auth controller. And when we call it, it's going to use this invocable function. So almost identical to any other method or form that we've done. I'm pasting this in. We need to pull in the user model, and we're going to pull in the hash support facade, as well as the auth facade. Here's what's happening. We're going to validate the input. We're going to get the name, the email, the password. We're making sure it's confirmed, and that's what that password confirmation field that we have is. We're going to create the user with a hash of that particular password, and then we're going to log in the user, redirecting to the home with a status of success. Welcome to Chirper. And that's it. It looks like this shouldn't be as easy as it is, right? But it is, mostly because of the helper methods that Laravel provides. Not just the authentication helper method to be able to log in the user that we just created, but also things like a hash to make passwords secure. And because we already have a user model that's given to us out of the box within Laravel, even if we don't have a starter kit that we started with, this just becomes incredibly easy to get a register controller or any sort of authentication up and running. Why don't we add this to our web route? So in addition to our view, we're going to add a post route post of register. And we're going to pass in that register class. You can see here that it's grabbing that auth register controller. Now there's something I want to add right now. Why don't we say that this is the register routes? So that way we know and it's easy to see them at a glance. But I do want to say that these routes should be able to be accessed by anyone, even if they're not logged in. This is where middleware comes into play, and Laravel has middlewares built out of the box for us. In this case, for the register route, I want to make sure that this is accessible by guest. So we're going to say this is a middleware of guest, and you can see here that we have that middleware available to us. And just for fun, I want to show us what a named route looks like. In this case, we can pass in a name, and I'm going to call this the register route. And we can do the same.
Yeah, so instead of having middlewares, we just use this file here.
Same thing with our post method as well. We're going to say that this is a middleware of guests. And we don't necessarily need to name this because we're just posting to the /register route using the register invocable class that we just created. This name helps us say, hey, instead of knowing that it is the /register page, maybe we change this to I don't know, new for some reason. Well, then we automatically know that it's still under the named route of register. We can actually update the navigation instead of this href to register to use a named route. For example, instead of that href of register, I can pass it this route. And in here, we might be able to see, yes, the register named route. And again, the VS Code extension is doing a lot of heavy lifting right here. Now, I do want to update this as well because when we're logged in, we shouldn't show the sign in and sign up page. Well, that's where the @auth.
So we have some things for populating menus and the layouts. So we can do a login, register, and if there is a username, you create a drop down for profile and then log out. And what we're doing here is so log in. So we'll show the name. We don't show the links for register and log in when the user is logged in. And I think, where is that? You got a main menu. Yeah, this is where we build the user menu.
Parameter, or the auth directive, I should say, comes in. So instead of this sign in and sign up, we can say, okay, well, if there is auth, in this case, if someone is authenticated into the application, then we're going to show the auth.
And do I have something for... Yeah. All right. I do have that documented.
Auth user's name and a logout button. We'll set this up in a little bit. Otherwise, let's show the buttons like we had them previously. What does this look like? We have the sign up button. That still works even with our named route. Let's go ahead and sign up. Josh, register. Welcome to Chirper. You can see here that we have my name. Logout's not going to work because we haven't created that route just yet. So just so we aren't stuck with this particular user that's logged in, why don't we create that logout route? We're going to create a new controller, PHP artisan, make controller. This is the auth/logout controller. We'll say it's invocable. Now in this logout invocable controller, it's going to be the inverse of what we did for register. We're going to grab the user with the request user, and then with the auth facade, we're just going to say, hey, let's log out that particular user. We're passing in that user variable. And then we can return a redirect with another success message. You successfully logged out. Let's add this to our web routes. So route post of logout, and again, that's what we're doing in our layout, where we are creating a form, a method of post to the action of logout, and the CSRF. And
so if we go back to... Actually, this is buried deep in the framework, I believe. Go into helper. Yeah. So in the menu system here, if route is auth.logout, we made that permanent. So you have to use the form. This is out of the user's control. Yeah, that could be indented, but who cares? All right.
And that's exactly what that button is going to do. When we hit that logout button, we are going to call this route post of logout and that logout class, that invocable controller that we just created. I'm using the middleware of auth, and this is to show that yes, there are multiple middlewares that Laravel gives out of the box, and auth is one of them. So in this logout option right here, what we're doing is saying, okay, only someone who is authenticated can actually hit this logout button. Of course, we have that in our layout here with auth as well. So now hitting logout, and yeah, we successfully logged out. Now I can't sign back in because we haven't yet implemented that, but let's go ahead and protect the rest of our routes and update our controllers to use our user now. We can actually group routes with middleware. What we can do here is route middleware. We can say this is the auth middleware. And we're going to group everything in this with a function, and we're going to say that, hey, within this whole route middleware group, I want to grab everything and put this in there. Now, everything that we see here is now under the middleware auth. So I can't send a new chirp now unless I am authenticated. So what does this look like? Well, if I try to send a chirp, hi there, and I hit chirp, what do you think is going to happen? Well, Laravel gives you something out of the box that because it knows you're not authenticated, it's going to try to authenticate you. And yeah, we don't have a login route defined, which is the default redirection that Laravel gives when you do not have an authenticated user and you try to hit.
So let's see here. I have something different. So let's see. Foo bar. It just does that. Controller does not exist. It's very simple, but it's definitely. It doesn't go into the whoops package.
A specific route that uses the auth.
But I could definitely add something, I guess, to that point. I mean, I can style the view and whatever.
Middleware. That's okay. We know it's working. Let's go ahead and update our chirper controller because here now we're not just creating a new chirp, we are actually creating a new chirp with our user. So why don't we do that within this store method? We're going to use the auth helper, and we can say that the user of this auth helper, we want to get their chirps, but we want to create them. And so we can actually create them with that validated parameter. Now my editor is going to give me an error that this method of user is not defined, but rest assured this is correct. And then since we set up that policy in order to authorize a user to update a particular chirp, we can add that here now. This authorize, if they are authorized to update the chirp, then let's continue. And same thing with the edit form as well. And then same thing for the destroy method as well. And since we are authorizing a particular user in this update method, well, we don't have to say we want the auth user's chirp to update because we already know that they're able to update this particular chirp. Same thing with being able to edit or view that edit page in general. Now we still see these edit and delete buttons. I'm not logged in, but we've started to authorize if someone is able to do this, if someone is able to edit or delete. Now if I tried to do this because we have that middleware, I should get an error. Yes, the route login is not defined. But how can we only show these edit and delete buttons when we are able to edit and delete this? In the chirp.blade.php component for these edit and delete buttons, let's go ahead and change this. We're going to say if the auth check exists, in this case, if they are authenticated, and if the auth ID is equal to chirp user ID. And that.
So if I go to here, I do have something here. See here? So I do auth check, yeah, current user, and then
Actually, there's an easy.
that's weird. Okay, so that is literally the current user, and then you have an ID. And then that's equal to this.chirp, this arrow chirp, arrow user ID. Okay. So I was on the right track.
Easier way to do this as well with the blade directive. Instead of this if auth check and auth ID is equal to the chirp user ID, okay, that's great, but really we just need to check that policy that we created. Can they update or can they delete a chirp? And if they can update it, they can delete it. So we can just use this blade directive of can. Can they update the chirp? In this case, the chirp that we're passing in. And then the can directive. Oops, the end can directive. There we go. In this case, we cannot edit any of these, and I cannot delete any of them because I'm not logged in. But I'm going to sign up, create a new account, and show you after I create a chirp that I can actually edit and delete them. Sign up. Josh2. Looks like we have error messages out of the box. Good. Register. Perfect. My first chirp. Chirp, and look at we have our user avatar associated with us because we have logged in, and I can see the edit and delete methods. I can edit, and looks like we have an issue here. Yes, our controller probably has not used the authorization or being able to use the authorization trait. I don't believe I set that up. So let's go to the chirp controller, and if we want to use this authorize, what we can do is make sure this controller is set up to authorize. Use authorizes requests. That pulls in the use illuminate foundation auth access authorizes request trait for this particular controller. Perfect. And now that we made that change, now our controller is using that authorizes request trait. We have the ability to have those authorization policies available. So we can edit the chirps that we create. Edit my first chirp, edited, and update chirp. Perfect. And we can delete it. Your chirp has been deleted. Fantastic. Hopefully this shows you that authentication doesn't have to be too scary. Authentication within Laravel is actually incredibly easy because of the tools that it provides. And while yes, it's great, you can just grab a starter kit from Laravel and you have authentication out of the box, you don't necessarily need to do it every single time. That being said, starter kits are great because they have a lot that we're not going to even touch within Chirper, such as password reset pages.
So basically, what I have here is a starter kit, and it's a package different from the framework. I do not have a blank slate package, but I could probably do that. Really, it's just deleting a whole bunch of crap here. I mean, delete auth controller, all this stuff, keep home. It's a lot of work if I wanted to do it.
Last but not least, why don't we get the ability for users to log in? Because if I log out, I can't.
And then you would have to like create your own migrations for everything, which is kind of cool because then you can just be like, hey, I don't want a description. I want to be everything based. Well, username is kind of baked in, so you got to use a username.
Can't sign back in just yet. So let's do that in the next lesson. I've created at least 2 accounts now, mostly because I don't have a sign-in page just yet. So let's fix that. We're almost done. Let's keep going. Let's make it so we don't see this 404 not found error again, at least on this login page. In our resources views, we have the auth directory for register. I'm going to create a new file for login.blade.php, and we can of course start with the register page itself and just make changes like that, or you can just copy what is in the lesson on laravel.com/learn and paste that in, And yeah, there's nothing too crazy here. It's exactly what the register page is, just with fewer forms and directing to a
Yeah.
specific method of login. You can start to tell
Got
how
their
a
own
lot of this
website.
is repeatable in the sense of once you get the hang of what a form looks like, especially if it's a form that has similar fields, the next time you implement that form, it's going to be a lot easier. And Laravel just makes it easy too. We created an auth logout class already. We just need our auth login, and we can do that all in one command. Make controller, and we're going to call this auth/login, and we're going to pass the invocable method. So if we go to our login auth controller, yes, this is our invocable single class controller. This is going to be one of the few controllers that's a little bit different, but only slightly. We're going to pull in that auth facade. So what this auth facade is doing is we're using the attempt helper with this facade. We're taking the credentials that we've been given, this email and password. We are attaching the
Do have something similar to an auth facade. So I have an auth service that kind of does some of the grunt work for confirm, determine the current user. This is where we do the hashing of the passwords. So if you have, go into auth controller, you got your login login. Then you can just do all. You can do the auth facade login function here, although it's not. I call it a service, and then it'll do all the login logic. I can track login attempts and lock out the user after a set number of attempts. Login user is another thing. Public static function login user. I think. Oh. This is when you're trying to log in from a cookie. Alright.
member checkbox if they gave that, and we're requesting a new session. We're regenerating that new session. You can see here this attempt helper automatically has that remember variable. If it's false by default. Otherwise, if we pass that in, then it's true. This is doing all the heavy lifting for us. And then we'll return back. Otherwise, if the auth attempt fails for whatever reason, then we're going to return back. This is a neat little return helper to say, hey, we're returning to the previous page, regardless of where that was, because maybe the user tried to chirp and we're going to go to the home page, but maybe they tried to log in, so we need to return back to that login page. But for the most part, we are just returning them back to the login page because we do have those errors. Now you might see how this could be as simple as this, or it could get a little bit more complicated if we wanted it to. We could have additional validation methods to say, okay, maybe we need to make sure that they have, I don't know, they are logging in the proper place. They are not trying to log in multiple times. And you can do all that with Laravel, and there's a lot of great helpers available, but this is just the absolute basics. We're logging them back in, again, using the auth facade to attempt to log them back in with the credentials that they've given. When you do need to step into a little bit more trickier applications, when you want to log someone in but want to make sure they're only logged in once, of course, Laravel has those helpers available to you. But that is also where some starter kits can be incredibly helpful. To be able to have that kind of out of the box, or at least have the starting base, the foundation out of the box ready to go so that you can add on to it with the helpful Laravel documentation. And seeing that we're requesting this session to be regenerated, it did remind me that I think we want to invalidate the session as well in the logout controller. So instead of just logging out this user, and we can actually simplify this with auth logout because we already know the authenticated user, then we can say we need the request session, and we're going to invalidate that. As well as the request session, let's go ahead and regenerate a new token. So that way the user who is then not logged in still has a fresh token. Let's go ahead and add this login route to our web.
So we do things a little bit differently. So we got, I believe it's session manager. Session manager does the login user from cookie, and then every time a new session is created, a CSRF token is created. So it's all done behind the scenes.
Login parameter route, post of login, and we're going to use that login class. We're going to use the middleware of auth and name this the login. Why don't we name the logout as well, even though I don't think we're using it anywhere, but it's also helpful just in case we wanted to use it. Again, similar to how we used it in the layout for this register route. We could go ahead and do this for the action logout if we wanted to. Oops, I accidentally put the get instead of the logout method. And I see what I did. I don't necessarily want this to be a named route because we are using the named route for logout. What I do need is the route view to be able to pass in the login page to the login class. This login blade view, I should say. And this is where we can have the middleware of guest. And we do want this removed from here as well, or at least the middleware of guest for this particular login route. And this is what we can name the login route. And there we go. That looks a lot better. So now we have this login page. If I was to log in to my previous email that I created, we are welcomed back. And this logout button should work even with the named route. And there we go. And while I haven't done a good job of showing you how often you should commit and push to your GitHub repository, the neat thing is because we set this all up within Laravel Cloud, where as soon as you push any changes, it's automatically going to be deployed, we can do that as often or as little as we might want. Although it's better to do it as often as you can. But let's go ahead and do that right now. So we can add everything that we've done. We can commit this as the let's do it, and we'll go ahead and push this. And so what we'll see,
and from what my notes says, we can probably do something similar by utilizing Laravel Forge. We'll figure that out. It's like I'm borrowing from another framework because I borrowed from Symfony, and I've used other frameworks as part of this project for unit testing, so it's just the name of the game.
See now is the opportunity to then view our full application live, ready to go, and with everything that we've built, but now hosted on Laravel Cloud. So if we go back to cloud.laravel.com and sign in with your account that you created, our Chirper application has now been deployed. We can click on this, and yes, we have our application live now on Laravel Cloud in production, ready for all to see. It looks like it's waking up from hibernation right now, and yeah, we could be the first to chirp here. So why don't we go ahead and do that? We'll sign up. We'll say first Laravel application created. Go ahead and chirp that. Fantastic. It looks great, and hopefully yours looks just as good too. Just to recap, if we try to create a chirp, because we have this middleware attached to any of the post methods for creating a chirp, editing a chirp, or anything like that, of course, we can't see editing or deleting a chirp. I cannot click on this. It takes me directly to the login page. Of course, we can register a new account if we would like, or I can log back in. We're using the default authentication, the auth helper and facade that Laravel gives, which includes remembering us and remembering that session. We have the ability to add new chirps. We can see that this chirp is attached to our particular user. If I was to add another one, it still uses my user and my little avatar. Logging out and signing in with a different email means that I cannot edit or delete these chirps that another user created. But this is my chirp. And I can definitely edit this.
Yeah. Nice.
Full CRUD functionality of being able to create, read, update, and then delete. All within a neat little chirper application. Now, this is looking pretty good for someone like myself who is not a designer, but thankfully I have some incredibly talented designers on the Laravel team, and with the power of modern CSS like Tailwind CSS, which comes out of the box with Laravel's starter kits, you don't have to worry about it. But with that little bit of CSS, we can go from something like this to this. So let's take a couple minutes and I'll just show you what I did. You can find everything to copy and paste in the article section of the Laravel.com learn page for this video. We're just going to add a whole bunch of stuff to the app.css. What that's going to do is a lot of stuff that you probably wouldn't normally do within modern Tailwind, but just for simplicity, I don't want you to have to modify too many files. It uses some custom theming to take everything that we already did and just make it look a lot nicer. And that's the power of Laravel, where it is just HTML and CSS, just with some added niceties. And with Tailwind being something that comes out of the box within starter kits, you can just do things like this. Now in the layout file, I'm going to add some OG images and some fav icons. Here's the code for them, and then with those new fav icons added in the public directory, we're going to add a new image directory as well. Images, and then here's where we can put our OG image. So then in the layout, all these fav icon assets, as well as the OG image, are Laravel VS Code extensions showing us that, yes, these are accurate. And then instead of this chirper button with this cute little emoji, well, we've got a nicely designed logo now. So I'm pasting that in. Now in the layout, because we have that custom theme, I'm just going to say that this is the Laravel chirper theme. So this is using that Daisy UI custom theme that we just created in app.css. In the chirp.blade.php, I'm going to remove the shadow. Same thing with the edit.blade.php from that card. And then back in layout, we're going to add this new footer instead. And then also in the chirp component, to keep it on theme with the colors that we have with this new logo, I'm adding this vibe is ocean to this avatars.laravel.cloud name, just to keep it on theme. And then just small changes to the login and register to have this be text XL with an MT margin top of 1. Go ahead and commit these changes. And we see this new git push being merged in Laravel Cloud. So we should see this live in just a few seconds. And look at that. It looks like it was successfully deployed. So we can access this domain. This is where we push this up to Laravel Cloud. And we have our brand new, freshly designed Laravel chirper ready to go. So congratulations. Give yourself a round of applause. You built your first Laravel application from start to finish. So in the next lesson, we'll take a brief look at what's next. Congratulations, you've just built your first Laravel web application from start to finish in about an hour, depending on how fast you're able to follow along. We started from nothing and we were able to get a multi-user authentication, authorization, everything, a social platform deployed with the power of Laravel. It takes all of that complex stuff that you might be scared or hesitant on in your development journey, and it makes it simple. You've been able to take this Chirper application, put it on the internet. It has user authentication. It has a full database that you can write to and also view. It also has security features like CSRF forms that Laravel gives out of the box, as well as password hashing. There's Tailwind CSS that we use with Daisy UI. And then all of this is neatly wrapped up within everything that Laravel gives from start to finish, from nothing to deployed. And so whether this was your first Laravel application or your second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever that might be, the great thing is it's always going to get better. Not only can your Chirper application have room to grow, there's fantastic things to learn, and maybe your Chirper application is a great starting point to say maybe user profiles or the ability to search, pagination, maybe even upload and display user profile pictures. What if you wanted to have people be able to like or favorite individual chirps? Or you could go more advanced with like real-time updates with Laravel Reverb or notification system. Maybe you use AI with Laravel's queue system, and so you kind of put it through this system of, is this able to be chirped? Maybe you want to get into that level of censorship. I don't know. The great thing is you've only just scratched the surface, and Laravel has so much to offer, not just in its ecosystem, but with the whole community as well. So as Taylor Otwell said, we must ship. So hopefully this isn't your last Laravel application.
All right.
I'll see you next time.
All right. So this is good. Yeah, this is it for this series. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.